in respect of everybody's time, especially on a work day, in a weekday, we'll jump right into this month's Philosophy Friday, which is an extra joy it can't even add to it because you just got a sneak peek at why this is going to be extra joy. I'm up here with my wife, Cheney.
Hey, everybody. Is this on? I'm really loud, so I can't even tell. Is it on?
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
I'm not used to having the mic.
You don't really need one most of the time.
This is true.
That's not even like a husband-wife little rapport comment. It's her whole life.
It's Texan thing.
Yeah.
But you're not that loud, so.
Yeah, it is a joy actually with how loud you are at parties. I can find you from 30 feet away. Your laugh is
I need to get my hearing checked.
My favorite sound in the world. But it is. I was gonna say it's an extra joy, and it is because I get to be up here with my wife for this month's Philosophy Friday. But it's always a joy because every time I look out in the crowd for any one of these Philosophy Fridays, especially the fact that it's 60, 70 people, and the last month's one had I didn't even realize this, but an overflow room of like 10 people in a room. Somewhere else in the Lighthouse, but it is so crazy that this started in our backyard 3 years ago with about 5 people, finding time to just discuss these philosophical concepts, timeless concepts, in a world that is filled with anything but timeless concepts. I mean, the news, the LA Times, it's all about the times. Most of our feeds are very much about the times, and yet it became so much fun to discuss these timeless concepts with each other, and be able to balance the fact that we were diving into this individually, even she and myself every morning before the kids got up, before the sun comes up. And we would talk about it during the day, but never carved out an hour and a half to discuss these concepts with each other, or any philosophical, spiritual, timeless concepts with each other. But like I said, it's hard to add, even doing it with my wife, it's hard to add anything to it because it is such a joy to see what it's become and know the stories behind so many of the faces that I see out in these Fridays, because it's wild, the depth of the people that, at least the stories that I know. So before we kick it off with, I'm sure she's going to grill me with a handful of questions, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A for anybody to ask anything they would like. And I'll give a little bit of background on the philosophy that we study each morning, but this is a space that makes room for any and all philosophical concepts. I was just on a podcast yesterday talking about Advaita Vedanta, this philosophy, but I probably spent more time talking about Socrates than I was talking about anything else. So there's room for any and all philosophical concepts, conversation points, questions from anybody during the Q&A. But before we jump into our questions and Q&A, I would love for everybody to say hello to the person next to you and just start off with what brought you here on a Friday when you could do anything in LA. What brought you to a philosophy club meeting?
Is that going to work back? All right, everybody. Looks like y'all could chat all day, but we can get started.
I will say that afterwards. What's cool about these is folks can hang out in the cafe in the courtyard afterwards, and chat with anybody that's here, and you'll probably find very cool stories of what brought someone here. Like I said, when you could do anything in LA, what brought you to a Philosophy Friday, and a place like the Lighthouse. It's usually really, really cool stories behind the people. Like I'm literally looking in the crowd, and I know how competent and badass the people that I know are, and from startups to art to health and wellness to movement to all kinds of to movie making. It's a very cool crowd.
Yeah. So James asked me the same question: what brought you here? And I said you, because so we both came across this Vedanta philosophy at the same time and same place, and both like kind of blew our minds, changed our worldview, like changed our lives, particularly this one book, Vedanta Treatise. And we both started reading this book, Vedanta Treatise, and really like studying Vedanta together. And I feel like for me, I was in this like honeymoon phase with spirituality, and like just consuming it so fast and like so obsessed with it. Oop. And for you, and then I think I took a pause because of like, ooh, what will people think? What will my family think about this? It's so different from being a Texas raised in an evangelical Christian home. And I kind of let all those like fear kind of thoughts creep in, and it slowly like tapered off my study or the intensity I was studying Vedanta. But then the one thing that I feel like I just couldn't deny was seeing it play out. Because meanwhile, James took it very seriously and was like super disciplined, has been like, I don't think taken a day off of like studying in 10 years, or has it been 10 years?
When I'm traveling, sometimes the time zone totally throws me off.
Yeah, but I was like watching I was just seeing his life and being like, you know what, it's definitely like working. It has to be this philosophy. And I think that's like the best testament for how it's been working is when somebody can like just look at someone's life and be like, okay, something's different about that person. I would just notice it in ways that I feel like you would have less agitation around things that I would be like just so roused up by I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, there's really like three things. And I feel like it was, you don't get agitated very easily. And I actually noticed that after studying Vedanta, like, yes, you're a little bit like more wired to be agitated. And I think once you started really taking this seriously, I was like, oh my gosh, he like never gets stressed, never gets agitated. And the other thing I noticed was everything you do is like, you're thinking in terms of how will this serve the other person? How will this serve the community? Like I do a lot of things like because it feels good for like, I want to do this because I enjoy this. And it's like, you always help me reorient it. Like, well, how can you enjoy it and it can like serve a larger purpose? And then the third thing is that I feel like your generosity, you like have this ability to just like, it's just a non-attachment. Maybe it's a non-attachment to money, but you're extremely generous. And I noticed those when I was thinking about it this morning, like those three things, I think I subconsciously picked up on it, and it re-inspired or it like reignited the flame for me to
so kind.
Get back. No, it's true. To just like kind of take Vedanta more seriously, start studying it again, go back through the books, and finally like actually do there's a 3-year course. We call it e-learning that our teacher, Swami Parthasarathi, teaches, and it's like 3 years of lectures. And I resisted doing it for a long time. Well, it's like $1,000, and I was like, damn, that's a lot. And then also
the book's like 30. You're like, oh, I'll just reread.
Yeah, and I like really love the book. So but then you had done, I think you were on like year 2 or like your second round of the 3-year course when I started doing the 3-year course, and then taking it more seriously, seeing kind of the fruits of that play out, and then meeting Nemi and Reva and people in our community that then we formed this group around. But anyways, long-winded as I feel like I'm here today, and thanks to you, and that's why I'm so excited to get to interview you in front of everyone today.
Well, I'll actually say I'm here because of you, and I will I'm not going to make you guys go through a fawning session on husband and wife, and
Yeah.
but I really, and that's so kind of you. Thank you. I didn't know you were gonna start with that, and it's so kind to hear that from anybody, but someone that you've been with for almost 16 years, day in, day out. That is so kind to hear that. You never know what a spouse is going to say, to be honest. And
It's
it
a
is,
good day.
but people do ask, yeah, yes, I'm on a good day. But people do ask you quite often, is like this philosophy stuff real, or what's James like outside of a speaking session or something like this? And so that's the highest praise you could think of, as someone that I spent pretty much, like, because I work from home, I don't know, 20 hours a day with for day in, day out. And truly the reason I'm here, and I think this gets back to the power of community, is I'm here because in my 20s in Silicon Valley, where I was like, we grew up in Texas, but where I was in Austin and realized the company I was building, maybe it would move 5% faster each day in San Francisco. So that compounds quite quickly. So if we're going to do it, let's go do it. Went up there in 2012. And then it was really interesting in that in my 20s, I went all in 7 days a week, 12, 13 hours a day, building startup and kind of doing everything by the American playbook. Just work like crazy. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Use yourself up. Certainly you see other people as instruments. This is something that Kant cautions against. Immanuel Kant said, you can almost distill his philosophy, practical side of his philosophy, down to: do not view others as instruments for your own gain, and do not view yourself as an instrument for your own gain. That second part, maybe to a younger me, I would be like, "What? How could I use myself up?" And then I see nodding in the room, and you get a few years into your career, and you're like, "Yeah, I burned myself up. I was totally using it. I wasn't going to the gym, was not taking care of myself, wasn't taking care of relationships, wasn't taking care of my health in all of these different ways. And I was just burning myself up in, like, if I can condense a 30-year career into 5, it'll all be worth it." Sent me to the ER with the heart condition and half the friends I started with, because I just wouldn't go to friends' weddings or bachelor parties, and miss out on nephews and niece births and things like that.
So much explaining I had to do.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Luckily, in not luckily, but in this country, our culture, the West in general, the two addictions that we're totally okay with encouraging. We're not okay with encouraging many addictions, but ambition and caffeine. Like, yeah, dude, have a third cup. It's like, oh, you drink 2 cups of coffee? Let's get some more. That ambition. It's like, yeah. Oh, he's working really hard. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was like impressive to people, the reason why you'd be missing a wedding.
Yeah, and it's really sad that we kind of live in that type of community versus the community we're in now, the relationship we're in now, the friends that we have now. Like, hey, are you sure you're not burning yourself out? But in my 20s and in the midst of all that, I didn't care about anything other than just making sure our company survived. And it was you that were like, hey, I think we should start going to church. I found a church that we should start going to. And when I was 6, I wanted to be a priest when I grew up. That's what I thought. I was like, that's what I want to be. And grew up Roman Catholic. And then from probably 18 to 26, it had fallen by the wayside. I'd go to church at college once a semester. Even that kind of felt like, yeah, still got that tether to the divine. But yeah, certainly in San Francisco, it had fallen away. And you were like, no. And I had this vision one time. I was falling asleep, and I had this vision that Cheney was just this pilot light, this this flame that could not be blown out. I've told you this before, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was like this pilot light. This was maybe 10 years ago, 29 or 30.
I thought it was a candle, but now I'm following. Yeah.
Yeah, like a flame.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But you know what a pilot light in air conditioning units and things like heating units, you have a light that just stays on, has to stay on. So that's what I mean of a yes, like a candle, a flame that doesn't go out, and that is such a powerful role for any relationship, any friendship, any community, for someone to be like, I'm not going to let this flame go out. And it's I think my flame would have gone out if you had just been like, careers where it's at. It'll all make sense when we're 45, and I'm really thankful for that. So I'm here in many ways because of you and that flame not going out. And as I went back to church in our 20s, I wanted a little bit more than kind of the much of conventional Christianity in the U.S. There's kind of 3 layers of the divine in my view. This is just James talking. You have fear. That's like level 1. It's what you might tell to a 6-year-old. Like, don't do that because here's a punishment. Sadly, a lot of people go to church or go to synagogue, or go to mosque because it's like, I don't want to go to hell. A place that I'm going to be on fire for eternity? Oh shit, I do not want that. And then you get to a place where it's a little bit higher, it's reward. It's like, well, if you do these things, then maybe you recognize subconsciously your community will value you a little bit more. Maybe you consciously recognize that your parents value you a little bit more, so you want to do that for the reward. You go to church on Sundays and you get the pat on the back from your community, or your parents are happy that you're going along with it. You get these signals that it's a reward. Or you think of the cosmic reward, world's greatest eternal party. You get to go to heaven if I do these things, if I believe these things, if I say these things in the right order. I get to party forever in all of these ways that are like unimaginable. And that's like the reward level. And then there's this third level, which in my experience growing up in Dallas, Texas, it's very few folks get to this third level, and very few of the messages get to this third level of surrender. A surrender into what is, a surrender into a worldview, a surrender into your community, a surrender into service. And that is this third level that I had never really heard the benefits of. Never thought about the benefits of. And this philosophy kind of quenched that thirst when I wanted to go beyond, to put it bluntly, in many ways, conventional spirituality is hedonism on the grandest scale. People don't talk about it that way. And it's certainly a bit controversial to talk about it that way. But when dealing with, I don't want to burn forever, or I want the greatest party of all time that I can't even imagine for eternity, and you're doing that for yourself, that is just delayed gratification towards hedonism on the grandest scale. And then you get into this like third, 501 level that this philosophy, and specifically Vedanta treatise, this book, talk about, where it's like this very crisp air, elevated view of a surrender towards something higher than yourself. And it's not hedonism. It's actually, as Christ said, emptying thyself. And I started to make sense of these words of Christ in a way that sermons on the pulpit had never really scratched at, because they, for much of my life, stayed at those first 2 levels.
And it feels like there's also this thing that happens in it where there's like, oh, we're just waiting. It's like a waiting to die so that you can have this eternity. Can you talk about how, with the surrender, like allows you more living in the moment and being more present? And what does Vedanta say about that?
That's a great observation. I've never thought about it in those terms, but it's like study this and wait around, and you'll see it all make sense. And Vedanta, which is, it just means, it's a Sanskrit word that means into the Vedas. The Vedas are the 4 oldest philosophical texts in the world. And I mention this nearly every Philosophy Friday for any newcomers, that these 4 texts, these Vedas, at the end of the Vedas, much of it is around how to clean a wound, how to prepare food, certain rituals at birth and things like that. But there is, at the end of it, is the crystallized philosophy called the Upanishads. And Vedanta has a branding issue because you can call it the Vedas, you can call it the Upanishads, you can call it Advaita, which means non-dual or not two. You can call it Advaita Vedanta. You could call it Sanatana Dharma, which means eternal principles. But they all point to the same thing. The Upanishads are the actual texts that sit at the end of the Vedas. And what they all say consistently across them all, what Vedanta treatise says, what the common subject matter of every single one of these philosophy hangs. The common subject matter, the subject matter of every single lecture on this philosophy is you. It's not about someone 2,000 years ago. And if you're even talking about someone 2,000 years ago or 500 years ago or 5,000 years ago, it's only referencing them, pointing back and talking about you. And to really hammer this point home, and to get to your question, the topic is about what you, at least according to this philosophy, take it or leave it, can experience here and now. Right now, which is reality. And to experience it, you have to wake up. And it's a lot like, it maps pretty closely to the Wizard of Oz, where we're told everything we want is through a long, long journey. The yellow brick road. The wizard at the end of the yellow brick road in the great big city. The shining city that seems to have all of the prosperity that we're chasing. Los Angeles is a pretty nice analog to that. You get there, you get to the long yellow brick road. You get to that gatekeeper that's going to have that information that's going to get you where you want to go. And then you watch The Wizard of Oz. You get through the whole movie. You get through the whole ups and downs of their tortuous journey. And what's the entire message of the movie? Dorothy could have got home whenever she wanted just by clicking her heels. That is so Vedantic. That is this philosophy. The oldest philosophy in the world is wrapped up into that movie so beautifully, and that's where you want to go? Well, this philosophy is said for 5,000 years, written down 5,000 years. Even the Upanishads, they'll say, the ancients have told us. 5,000 years ago, when it was being written down, who knows how long the oral tradition was, they were saying, the ancients have told us. So it's this consistent message that it can be experienced here and now. And
you only need to remember is that it's like remove the ignorance. I've heard Swami say it's like a veil of ignorance. And so it's really about removing the ignorance.
Right.
And to there.
Yeah, it is waiting for, just like the waker in a dream. The dreamer doesn't need to do anything. The dreamer's, 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago when you're asleep, you're probably convinced there's things I need to do, or there's drama, and there's other people, and there's a scenario I need to work through. I had a dream recently where there's a friend of mine that's just is constantly in a state of suffering. I think I mentioned this to you. And in the dream, I was like, man, I can't solve this for him. And in the dream, he was comparing himself to a peer that was thriving. And this person's thriving in real life, but also, at least from the outside, but suffering internally. There's nothing I could do in the dream. And there was a lamentation around that, even after waking up. And then I realized, man, just waking up ended that dream person's suffering. And it's very much like that for at least what this philosophy says. It's so brain dead simple, but it's so contrary to the 3,000 messages the average American is subjected to 3,000 advertisements a day. That's 3,000 messages that tell you what you want is at the end of some metaphorical yellow brick road. It's in this watch, it's in this degree, it's in this job, it's in this this vacation, it's in this credit card. And so it's very hard to put up with 3,000 messages a day telling you otherwise. But the most consistent message in nearly every major tradition, the most consistent message in nearly every philosophy, I mean, Socrates' allegory of the cave is this. We're staring at shadows on the wall, thinking this is reality. And the allegory of the cave, in his view, is, nope, there's something else. that is in a whole nother dimension, that isn't staring at a wall, convinced that we're staring at reality, but it's something wholly different. But we hear about the allegory of the cave maybe once every 3-4 years, and it's the most famous Western philosophical concept we have, perhaps. And 3,000 times a day we're told, like, nope, it's through this, that'll get you there. So it's so brain dead simple, but as my dad would say often growing up, bench pressing 500 pounds it's not complicated. It's simple, but it's not easy. So breaking through 3,000 messages telling you otherwise, your 17 friends that you'll interact with and coworkers that you'll interact with within a day that tell you otherwise, it is not easy, but that is the message. Click your heels. And it's something we have to hear and combat the 3,000 times we hear otherwise, because very few, every once in a while, someone in history becomes a lighthouse because they instantly hear and wake up. Ramana Maharshi comes to mind, woke up when he was 17 and went silent for 34 years, walking around a hill in India. He's never even said anything, became famous because of his commitment to Maunam, silence. But those are few and far between.
How can you still live in the world when you have like family responsibilities, jobs, all of these things? How can you actually live from that place of remembering, like, oh yeah, click your heels, or it's like all within you? But how does that practically play out in day-to-day life? I've heard you use the expression of like sometimes you just have to kick the ball. Like maybe your parent is just like always talking about the same subject or always playing the victim, and how do you, I guess, interact with the world and people who aren't also following this philosophy? I guess that's more my question is around satsang, like, because we've really gotten to a place where we have almost like handpicked as much as we can the people that are, not to say like allowed, but that we bring into our space.
Allowed is a decent word.
Yeah, like
Every boundaries are.
yeah.
I mean, without boundaries, if your body didn't have boundaries, you wouldn't survive. Now you can go out and mix it up every once in a while, but know your level, because you go out and mix it up every once in a while, and then it becomes, I'm going to mix it up a little bit more,
and then
I'm going to mix it up a little bit more.
Yeah,
and but it's a. I think everybody should be extremely intentional about the people. You can catch we know this scientifically. You can catch a mood like you catch a cold. There's a large-scale study in 2017 that said moods are as contagious as colds. So you can catch a mood as easily as you can catch a cold. So the idea, it's like, no, I need to love everyone. I'm going to go everywhere. I'm not going to be thoughtful in who I'm hanging out with. Man, if you're at Christ level, go friggin' wild. But if you're not, then be very mindful of the people you want to go be around. Because, it's like the common adage where the summation of the 5 closest people to us. Another way of saying that is you catch a cold, or you catch a mood like you'd catch a cold. Another way.
Can I say before I forget something?
Yeah, please.
One of the things that I noticed when I started studying Vedanta early on, and I still notice it if I'm being honest, is it made me more critical of the people around me. Like I just would be like, I guess because it's like a greater awareness and, more knowledge, but that also opens your eyes to like, oh my gosh, like everyone has so many issues. And I think I got like more critical of particularly like my family. How do you study the philosophy and become, it's like what I want to become, which is more accepting, loving, empathetic of everyone around me, when I'm seeing all of these like red flags in everyone and myself, but at sometimes it feels like too critical.
I would throw that back to you, but I'll because I think you have some great points on this, because you have noticed it, and I think at any time that you lift your head up and you look around, and it's like Mark Twain had a quote of, anytime I find myself siding on the side of the majority, I have to pause and reflect. Like the majority of humanity has been wrong over and over and over again. You see this in any professional like economic bubble. You see this in any kind of major discovery in throughout humanity. It's like, well, of course the world's flat. It's got to be. Because things just like fall down and they don't roll around. It's preposterous that the world is round. Sorry for any flat earthers here. Does not seem to be supported by evidence, but or it's like, well, obviously the stars are rotating around the earth. That's obvious. Obviously, light's coming from the moon. I can see it. And then we get a little more savvy in our perspective and observation. We realize, oh wait, no, I don't think the light is coming from the moon. It's reflected from the sun. Actually, you know what? Has anyone ever seen the nautical maps where the Earth is at the center of the universe, and there's like all this Cartesian math to map out nautically how to navigate with the Earth at the center of these maps for maritime navigators? It's wild. It's like so complex, but they kind of figured out a lot of things. Some things didn't fit, but it kind of worked. And then you view a heliocentric map where the sun is at the center, and the map is like so simple. The math is so simple. So when I think about this philosophy, I'm like, I don't care if anyone else gets it or anyone else finds it interesting or not. This philosophy itself says 1 in 10,000 will find it interesting. It also does follow it up and say, but for those that do find it interesting, they'll find nearly nothing else as interesting. It's like people that would come to something like this, and I see people have come for 3 years. Juan, who's circled around this philosophy for how many decades? 2, 3? It's once you kind of catch a wave in this philosophy, and 1 in the 10,000, it's like, man, I can't stop thinking about some of these concepts. And but the folks that are interested in these things are few and far between. But for me, I'm like, dude, I don't care. It just makes my math easier. The work relationship, building a startup, raising 3 daughters, it's just so much easier with these concepts versus all of like the math of like, no, my own selfish desires are paramount, and then below that, my family, and then my friends, and then my coworkers, and it's like a lot of math to triangulate versus like, you know what? The root of the word apocalypse is to unveil. The apocalypse is not fire and brimstone. Apocalypse is seeing behind the veil, seeing that there is no wizard. Seeing behind the veil is what I love to say about philosophy. Philosophy is not a highfalutin academic thing you do in a cabin somewhere. It's not a solitary pursuit. Philosophy is just clarity. Philosophy is discovery, removing the covering of what is. Difference between discovery and searching. Searching is an external pursuit. Discovery is right where you are. You already have it. Remove the covering. There is an element that when you remove the covering, when you see behind the veil, and you have this clarity, it's like we use this phrase in culture of like the edge of sobriety, or grab a drink and let's go take the edge off. What happens if you leave the edge on? Maybe it's uncomfortable. A knife can cut both ways, but if you're comfortable with that knife, if you're comfortable with that edge, that's one profoundly useful tool to cut through any challenge in front of you, to cut through any bullshit, any noise. This philosophy, in many ways, it points to sharpen that edge. There's no judgment. Go grab drinks with friends for sure. But cultivate an edge of sobriety to see things, and it's uncomfortable. Any pursuit of self-awareness is going to be a daily pursuit towards
I do
discomfort.
think it's super uncomfortable because it gives you this like new layer of humility too, of like, oh my, because you're more aware of all the ways, I guess, that you're falling short. And so it's very humbling.
And I think that pairs with that edge of sobriety, that clarity that you see others, and you see where they're maybe falling, or like, I cannot believe they're doing that. It's like I've got a family member with a drinking problem. Judgment is toxic. Judgment won't help them. As Christ so famously pointed out, we're not called to judge. You could judge an action. You could discern what's right for you. You could judge a thought that might lead to an action for yourself, but judging others, that's not for us to do. You can discern what community you want to be in. That might be like, hey, I want to get stronger, and I'm going to start this. I'm going to go to this workout club that meets at 7 a.m. I want to run more. I'm going to join a run club. That's discernment. Judgment of other people, that gets into thinking they're less than you. This whole philosophy is about they are you. Remembering is going from this place that the world tells you that the 60 other people in a room, the trillion other things around the world is saying, like, dismember. Separate yourself. There's you. And the you, we're not even really clear on what the you is, because the dismembering can go on and on and on, where it's like, this hand is me. Well, is it? My fingernails, I can clip them there. When do they stop being me? When they fall to the ground? You could take away my finger and I'd still be me. Remove your hand, you're still you. Remove your arm. One of the Upanishads goes through this example. You're still you. You have a thought that comes and goes. You're still there, so you're not the thought. Keep going back and back. So it's not very clear of like who we are to dismember from the world, because you get down and like, well, I'm also going to dismember from my hand. And what this philosophy says, it's like in Lion King, which we mentioned last month. Mufasa in the cloud says to Simba, remember who you are. Don't dismember, remember. And that remembering is this not to Advaita Vedanta. And I can give the high-level view on Vedanta in 3 minutes at any point if people would like, or they can listen to the first episode of the Daily Vedantic Whole Philosophy in 15 minutes. But this is philosophy. This philosophy, like I said, the subject matter is you, remembering who you really are. And it's so freaking wild to be told the thing that you should know most closely, and that you do deep down, is the thing that we are the most confused about. Especially in a world where, like, you never want to be confused about yourself. It's like, I know I need to know who I am. I need to find stability. I need to respond to that name that my parents are calling me. And they're telling me like, hey, that's not you, James. You wouldn't do that. It's not like you. It's like, yeah, that's right. I need to figure out who, and then I'm going to be that thing. And yet you get to a point in life, maybe it's 16, maybe it's 66, and you're like, I don't know who the fuck I am. And then you jump on some other track. It's like, I think I'm this. Oh, I know who I am. Now I know who I am. At 36, I started to figure out who I was. And this philosophy is like, maybe you figured it out, or maybe there's still a bit further to go. But what the end of the story says is, you are it. Tattvamasi, the most famous phrase in the Vedas, in the Upanishads. Mahavakya means great phrase. You are it. You are what is. And so when it comes to judgment, it's like, well, it's like judging your left or right hand. So I throw it back to you on how have you navigated any pursuit towards anything? You see this in like health and wellness quite often, where you take on a healthy habit. You're like, oh my God, why doesn't my brother do this? He needs it. Or my parents, my mom never works out. They need to do this. How do you navigate that kind of perhaps clarity without judgment?
I just remembered something a friend of ours, this comedian Pete Holmes, some of y'all might know him. He studies non-dual philosophy as well. And he said once on his podcast, he said, whenever I get into that judgment mindset, I just think to myself, if I were them, I'd be them. And I was like, whoa, yeah. If I had like all these same experiences that they had, the same guides they had, I'd be doing the same things they were doing. And then like to what you just said, it's like, not only like would you be them, but you are them. Like they are you. It's all one. I really like love the concept of oneness in this philosophy, coming from a very dualistic upbringing of like you have enemies. It's like there's evil and sure there is. I just think it's like all part of this illusion. And actually, I wondered if you could talk about, because I was thinking about like the, idea of like just thinking of childhood, like growing up, like I was so scared of like Satan in hell. And then all I wanted was to get crowns in heaven. So I was that little girl that was like doing things just because I was like, I want to be in that place, not burning. And one thing about this philosophy that I learned about was the world of opposites. Can you explain world of opposites and how?
I can, but I want to round out that last thing that you said about. You're doing great, by the way.
Thanks.
When you said the jewels in the crown, and that's what kids are told in Dallas, Texas.
Was anybody else raised like that?
Anyone?
Oh, this is some Californians. Oh, we got one.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a couple.
And I was told bricks in a mansion in heaven. When you're 6, 7, 8, get a bigger mansion. And it's sad that those things stick, and then you're like 15, 16, and no one ever undoes that. It's like, oh yeah, that's fine. You can still think that, but now it's an even like better version, and it's not very clear like who is enjoying that. Is it like I'm frozen? Like if a newborn dies at like 4 months old, are they 4 months for eternity? Like what are they?
Well, and it's funny because I'm just thinking out loud here, but when you're talking about The Lion King, I think because that was my favorite movie as a kid, and I wonder if I subconsciously was like, that's it. Like that, if I subconsciously thought, like, recognized that was truth as opposed to what I was being told. Like, I wonder if it was like deep down subconscious of like.
The truth is the truth. So it's going to show up everywhere. This philosophy shows up everywhere. That's why it's the oldest philosophical concepts on the planet have not gone anywhere. And it shows up east, west. It shows up from Socrates and Allegory of the Cave to the Matrix. Shows up in Harry Potter. Shows up in Luke Skywalker and Star Wars. Joseph Campbell, the titans in the West that study this philosophy every day. Joseph Campbell, Emerson, Thoreau, the Boston Brahmins. That's why they're called the Boston Brahmins, because they studied this philosophy every day and read the Bhagavad Gita. It's like a famous quote from Thoreau is, "Every morning I bathe my intellect in the stupendous cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita."
Who talks like that?
No.
Say that in English.
We lost our way. Yeah, exactly. It's Thoreau is quite the wizard of words, and Joseph Campbell or Alan Watts, Carl Jung. Carl Jung studied this philosophy daily, but Joseph Campbell. Anyone familiar with Joseph Campbell here? So he wrote a book, many famous books, but one is Hero with 1,000 Faces, and he coined the term the hero's journey. This arc that shows up in stories over and 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 over again. The same hero's journey. It's the same story. It's truth woven in every single story. The mistake is to think that it's a story about someone else. We resonate with it because it's like, yeah, Harry Potter. Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm in the freaking cupboard under the stairs. The world is kind of forgetting about me. And no, he gets to be the hero to save everybody and right the world. Luke Skywalker on the far edges in the far-flung universe is actually, the key to righting the universe, to setting it all right. The reason these stories resonate with us on our comfortable couches in our air-conditioned movie theaters is because we resonate with that story. We relate to that story because deep down we know that is our story. Every single person in here has had the thought, speaker included, what should I do with my life? What should I do with my life? What is my purpose? We have that thought because we feel this pull towards something great. This philosophy just happens. Most people are like, you find there is no meaning. Some people are like, there is no meaning in life. Some people are like, meaning is what you make it. Meaning is a function of purpose. You cannot find meaning without purpose. And meaning is not purpose. They're very different. People use those terms interchangeably. They're wrong. Meaning is not purpose. Meaning is a function of purpose. Does a stone have meaning when you're walking by on your way to work on a Tuesday morning? Well, not if your purpose is to get to work. If you're a stonemason building a stone wall 200 years ago, that stone might have a lot of meaning to you. Meaning and purpose are not synonymous. You find out your purpose, and then you discover what has meaning, what doesn't. Who has meaning? Who has perhaps satsang, which is community and truth. Dosang is community of the false. Who might help you and progress in your own development? Who might, knowing your level, again, if you're Christ, if you're the Buddha, then you can go anywhere. I know my level. If I'm around the friends that really love to rage too much, man, I'm going to go out till 2 a.m., going to get shit sleep, going to miss my morning study reflection, going to be out of rhythm. And if I'm going out with them the next night, as they say, once is a mistake, twice is a habit. You do anything a second time, once it's like, okay, it's just once in a blue moon, that's totally fine. And going to rage with friends, that can be a beautiful thing. But I know my level. If I do that second time in a row, third time, then, okay, I'm starting a new habit. Instead of, waking up early and prioritizing one thing, I start to go to bed late, prioritizing another. And this idea of, even when you touched on, I was going to say when you touched on evil, the Vedantic view on evil is goodness bereft of a guide. There's no real concept of evil in Vedanta, which can be a tough pill to swallow if your worldview is really built on no, there is good and evil. And these people I have already deemed evil. And it's so clear they're evil. It's hard to shake us of that. The earth is certainly flat. I know it's flat. I can look around, it's flat. It's hard to shake us of that. But the Vedantic view on it is it's just goodness bereft of a guide. So when we look at someone in our practical lives where it's like, man, I wish they were something other than what they were, which can be very natural, especially as you get more and more clarity. You recognize, man, I'm just so thankful for, you turn it inwards of gratitude for the guides that you've been given instead of judgment externally towards them. And then the last thing I'd say on that topic, because judgment is so toxic to ourselves to go around judging other people. It's just you happen to have different guides, perhaps. But it actually goes to something you told me that Dax Shepard said on another podcast you love. This was like 5 years ago you said this.
I haven't listened to him in forever, but I love him. I want to start listening again.
Yeah, he said this, that I think he was quoting something that he had heard where he said, when it comes to perhaps maybe like, I think he was talking about parents.
Oh, yeah.
And it was something along the lines of the anger we have towards parents often comes from the love and knowledge of what we know they could be.
Yeah.
So that judgment could also come from a place of love and being like, my family member that has this addiction to alcohol perhaps could be disdain for their decisions, but it could also be love of like, I know they can do better than this. And I am watching this train wreck in slow motion of divorce, 3 children, innocent bystanders in the mix that are going to go through this, and it's out of love that there's an agitation, but it's still goodness bereft of a guide, and it's far better use of the energy to have gratitude for. Man, I'm just so thankful I've had the guides that I've had. I don't have that issue.
What about somebody that has, I feel like there are people who have the same guide but have different outcomes.
You never know.
What do you mean?
They might be in the same lecture halls hearing the same lecture,
Right.
but they had 4 other guides from age 7 to 18 showing them, perhaps a alcoholic parent, showing them a very different example. And you
That's
and your
a really
friend
good
grew
point.
up in the same neighborhood, and you're at the same college, and you're going to the same, I don't know, growing up in Texas, same RUF.
You could also say everybody has like a different starting line.
Yeah, say
Right.
more on that.
Well, it's kind of like know your level. Like maybe you might feel like you have the same guide as somebody, and yet, well, I mean, look at Christianity. People following like Jesus would be their guide, would be the guide, and there's just obviously it's like, well, they have the same guide, but everybody is starting at a different level, and I guess, or at a different starting line. So you can't compare yourself to them because they started at a different spot than you.
Exactly, and honestly, as the adage goes, the only person to compare yourself to is the person you were
Self.
yesterday.
Yeah.
And the comparison is not only a thief of joy; it's the thief of a fruitful relationship.
I have a question about, I feel like something that came up yesterday that we were talking about a situation that was going on with some friends of ours, and you immediately realized it was all because of desire. And I didn't put that together. And when you said it, I was like, oh, wow, yeah, that's totally the problem. Can you talk about what the philosophy says about desire?
Well, I think each philosophy that's worth its salt that's lasted a few hundred years, because there are philosophical trends that are fashions. Difference between art and fashion is art increases in value over time. It appreciates in value over time. Fashion depreciates in value over time. And the philosophical viewpoints that appreciate over time, and you have like something like the romantic viewpoint came and went about 150 years, and then you have something like let's say Stoicism that has lasted quite a long time, a couple thousand years, and you have Vedic philosophy that has been around for thousands of years. And by the way, Stoicism, I've heard it said kind of pithily that Vedanta is Stoicism plus God. So you just add in metaphysics, and Stoicism doesn't deal too much with metaphysics or kind of the universe at large. And but it is a great internalization of Socratic models. Is one way of thinking about it. It's the same thing with Buddhism. The same adage is, and the same speaker, this great Vedantic teacher, said, it's a lot like Buddhism. You add in God, and I think this subject is so any philosophical framework, clarity, love of wisdom, philosophia means love of wisdom, and wisdom, as defined in Vedanta, is the capacity to see the end in the beginning. And like I said earlier, another term for Vedanta is Sanatana Dharma, eternal principles. So it's just a list of about 25, 26 principles. One of them is wisdom is the capacity to see the end in the beginning. It's clarity, and it's a love of clarity. You really develop a love for seeing things clearly. And in a lot of ways, Vedanta becomes like a gym and a hospital. It's both. Gym makes you stronger to where it's you develop this subtle equipment that this philosophy in the first episode of Daily Vedanta kind of outlines this, that you have a body, a mind, and an intellect to navigate the world. It's probably the most powerful central contribution of this philosophy in our practical daily lives. The meeting you have 2 hours from now, and the potential fight you might have with a significant other 24 hours from now, that challenge at work or that opportunity at work, it says that you have this subtle equipment, the intellect, to guide the mind. The mind is one powerful thing, but it's described like a child. The mind is our preferences, our likes, our dislikes, our emotions, and the intellect is this subtle equipment. Now, in the last 10 years, we'll talk about it like the prefrontal cortex. In the 90s, it was hip to talk about like the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain. The lizard brain, you'd hear that growing up. Now you hear the higher brain, lower brain, the higher mind, the lower mind, thinking fast, thinking slow, dual systems thinking. These are all kind of relatively modern ways of talking about this ancient concept that you have this other equipment, that our thoughts are not a monologue. There's a dialogue happening within us. And the dialogue is between that and the kind of one view in the West would be thinking fast, thinking slow. It's like, my first impulse was this, but maybe I need to think about it and not send that email. Well, what is guiding you to not send that email? That's the adult in the room, the intellect. Prefrontal cortex, you could call it that, but this philosophy says there's a subtle equipment that if you strengthen it, it'll make the right decision every friggin' time. Strengthening it is like being at the gym. You strengthen it, and the best way to strengthen it is study, reflect daily. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it could be St. Augustine, it could be Socrates, it could be Vedanta treatise. Read 2-3 pages with your cup of coffee, with your magic mind as well. But 15 minutes, and it strengthens the intellect in the same way you'd strengthen any muscle. And it's like a gym in that way. Or it's like a hospital. Something catastrophic is happening. And this example is someone in our community did something pretty
shady.
And I'll say one of my other favorite principles of Vedanta is nothing feels as good as doing what you ought to do. And it's so beautiful. I see Mitch nodding his head, and it's so simple, and it's so beautiful. Just like all beautiful things tend to be quite simple. Nothing feels as good as doing what you ought to do. And we all know that.
He tells our girls that all the time. It's such a good line for kids and parents.
And it makes no sense maybe when you're like, no, cookies feel good. And they do until you get to 17 of them, or until you get to 17. I mean, our daughter quite literally threw up from having a scoop of ice cream and a milkshake, and it threw up. So it's quite literal. And it's
desire.
Exactly. A little too much indulgence. You don't end up feeling good. But you do what you ought to do, and you do your homework, and you feel good about it. And our daughter was a bit flustered this morning because she didn't do her homework. Something was going on. And I think that was ultimately it, was she didn't do her homework, that we found out later on. But that is the surgery is, I don't feel good. Something's off. Part of it is, I didn't do what I ought to do. This person happened to do something quite shady that might lead to destruction of a marriage. And you see it, and then you get a layer deeper. It's like, yeah, they did that bad thing because they felt so much turmoil inside. So our teacher, Swami Parthasarathi, who wrote Vedanta treatise, is 98 years old. He was a Shakespearean scholar before he ever studied and taught philosophy. He was a lawyer after being a Shakespearean scholar, became a lawyer, and studied in London. So it's everything in Vedanta treatise is written kind of like a lawyer. It's no woo whatsoever. It's so simple and so systematic.
You think no woo? I feel like there's little woo.
What woo comes
on? Well, like before I read Vedanta treatise, I got super into Ram Dass, and I loved the woo. I don't know. I didn't feel like Vedanta treatise took away from that at all for me, actually. But I guess I did feel like it was much more of a practical, like more of a manual. And the Ram Dass was maybe like more fun and felt more magic, more alive. I don't know, more alive, more magic, more like looking
fanciful.
For those synchronicities. Yeah. And then
beautiful.
Yeah, but Vedanta treatise didn't take away from any of that to me, or Vedanta personally. But yeah, I guess it is. It's definitely more practical than.
Yeah, I'd say it is. There are no miracles. There's no like grand gestures to add proof to this. It's just rational, logical argument. True. And that's how I teach in any episode of Daily Vedantic. It's how I talk here. It's the Vedas, the Upanishads. They're so frickin' precise in the language that's used, to where you're told you're it, and you're like, there's no way. How could that have not a whole lot of woo to it? And then it's like, well, the dream example. Every night you go to bed, and I mention this nearly every talk, because when the end of this philosophy, or the end of Socratic philosophy, Socrates is saying the allegory of the cave. I think what really trips people up when they hear the allegory of the cave is they imagine people back then, 2,400 years ago, like in a cave. Just imagine people right now. And don't think of it as a vivid, because it's quite vivid, people in a cave, shadows. But think of it as Socrates is saying, that's you. You are the one staring at a wall with shadows, convinced it's real. And when the person that got unchained goes up, ascends, very important direction, ascends, sees reality, is blinded by it, and then it's like, I've got to go back down and tell everybody. Doesn't just like soak it up, escape and never come back. They're like, I've got to go back and tell everybody that's chained down there. It's like just barely surviving, chained, not seeing reality, slaves to whatever is chaining them and these shadows from the fire behind them on the wall. I've got to go tell them. And as I mentioned last month, the often forgotten aspect of Socrates' allegory of the cave is when he says, when that person comes down to tell them, this ain't it. Reality is a whole nother dimension than this. Those people that are chained want to kill that person. There is no warm reception for that person. They want to kill him. That was obviously pretty stellar foreshadowing because Athens killed Socrates. We obviously killed Christ. Someone saying these things is not usually received too well. And but what is so interesting is the Vedantic way of talking about it then offers up this very rational argument. It says, this isn't reality. I mean, to get right to the end of the deep end of the pool, it says, this isn't happening. This is not real. This is a complete projection of your mind. You're like, no, there's what? Like, no, I'm just a person in this, a subject in this environment. And then the philosophy says, well, what about the dream 5 hours ago? We're all world creators. You created an entire world 5 hours ago. That dream with walls, people, gravity, shoes, clothes, different colored clothes, different people, drama. You didn't know what was about to happen. Things you did like, things you didn't like. The unknown. How's this going to unfold? You wake up and it doesn't take a philosopher to say it. That was all you. All of it. Every shimmer on every wave, every leaf on every tree that you've ever dreamed wasn't someone else. It wasn't some tree existing in some objective, external realm. That was you. And this philosophy just happens to say, you know that thing that you do every night? Well, this is an elevated version of that. All those other people you think that you're interacting with, they're all you. As Swami will say, so many times, and yet you have to hear these things, at least I do, 1,000 times before they click, and even that, I can theatrically say it, and it hasn't fully clicked for me. But he'll say it over and over again. There is only you. People will bring in like drama at the ashram, where the ashram that you can tune into lectures that we tune into each morning. It's about 100 people there or so, and people like a student will bring in like, my roommate is so and so I'm like, there's only you. My wife is there's only you. It's quite the grounding wire for drama, but even in the midst of this like crazy far-fetched, the most radical concept you could lay down, it's like there's no woo. It's like just 5 hours ago you did it.
And the crazy thing is, maybe some of y'all were here at Lighthouse like a month ago, but there was a neuroscientist, Donald Hoffman. Was anybody there for that?
Yeah.
Eric back there. Yeah.
Is anybody aware of Donald Hoffman's work by any chance? Okay. A few of you, you're probably going to hear this name a lot in the next few years.
He's like basically kind of proving this out scientifically, which is just mind-blowing. But can you explain like briefly kind of what what he's proving?
Yeah, so I think if you take anything away from this talk, feel free to check out the first 3 pages of Vedanta Treatise, see if it speaks to you. Daily Vedantic, the first episode will tell you the whole philosophy in 15 minutes. Or go check out this guy's work, Donald Hoffman. And he's lighting the internet on fire. He's like on all the big podcasts now, and he's TED Talk and probably going to win a Nobel Prize for their work where they're mathematically, he and his team, he's in SoCal and his team that he works with between UC Irvine and MIT. They're mathematically showing that what we view isn't just not reality, can't be reality. And showing that the chances mathematically, not presupposition, it's not a philosophical point, it's not a dreamlike kind of analogous articulation of an argument. They're just showing with math that the chances that what you are viewing right now, the chances that it is reality, is 0%. And it's not that this is a low resolution. This is like 7% of reality, and there's like, dark matter, dark energy. 95% of the universe is invisible, is unknown, unseeable, that's what any physicist today says, by the way. So not only is like the best in physics saying 95%, we don't know what it is, and we just like stamp terms on it. We're like, we have no idea what it is, but we're going to call it this thing called dark energy. And that makes it seem like we know what it is. We've got no fucking clue. And we slap 2 words on it and act like we do. Dark matter, same thing. But he goes further and says it's not just like a low resolution version of reality and something bigger is going on. Him and his team go so far as to say is what you're viewing has nothing to do with reality. And he'll often use the dream example. I don't know where he also came across these kind of Vedantic talking points. I have given him a copy of Vedanta Treatise before, but he was talking about the dream example before that. He talks about like a VR headset, where you put on a VR headset, you're looking around, you see things, and it's not like, wow, this VR headset that's showing this video game that I'm in, this is 1.3% of what's happening, but 98.7% is bigger than this. It's like, no, this video game isn't happening. And when they showed that, TED Talk became pretty famous when they mathematically seemed to prove that, and then put the math out there, and no one's disproved them in the last 7 years. And he's like, the math is out there. If people don't agree, they can try to disprove it. But each year he gets famous for going even more like radically further with this. And lately, they've been saying that whatever you view and perceive, when you're not perceiving it, it doesn't exist. And, from the training we're given, the programming we're given when we're a kid, we're like, no, of course this is real. Of course this is real. Of course it's still there. Because, of course. It's there. It's got to still be there. But the dream example, the VR headset example. But what is nuts is that he is, for many people in the world we live in, science is the language of the day. And the prophet must speak the language of the people. And for a great many, that scientific language that they're highlighting is blowing minds, but then also it seems to be pretty solid science and math. The math is certainly above my head.
It's just crazy that these sages knew all this like way before technology or any type of modern day information access. We have so much access to information, and we're just now coming to it, and it's just coming back to what these ancient sages said.
He says that often as well.
Like, were they mad scientists back then? I don't think so.
They were certainly scientific. I think at least the Vedic philosophy is very scientific of analyze like crazy, analyze and experience.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't have the tools we have today. But it was very in that scientific test, hypothesize, analyze. It was very much science is still talked about.
Maybe the tools are distracting us.
That's certain. There are many tools that are developed that then, I think one of the things that's interesting is science can be used for phenomenal illumination. But it's not what you do, it's what you do it for. And this is another Vedantic principle that's mentioned quite a lot in this philosophy. It's not what you do, it's what you do it for. The right tool used in the wrong way, as the Buddhists say, the right tool used in the wrong way becomes the wrong tool. Hammer to make a smoothie might not make a great smoothie. The right tool used in the wrong way becomes the wrong tool. It's not what you do, it's what you do it for that matters. You might have phenomenal, Swadharma is another principle of your nature. Lean into your nature. Swadharma means one's own nature. And you might have a swadharma for shredding on the guitar. Phenomenal at the guitar. But if you use that wiring, that mastery, for your own gain, you're like, I want to get in front of 50,000 people, and I want to do this for me, that will agitate the shit out of you. It will, and you might get far, and then it'll burn you up. But if you say, you know what, I have mastery over this instrument, people really enjoy it, this is my gift to anybody that wants to come and listen. Man, you could be Bruce Springsteen, touring for 50 years. I know a friend of mine, Samir here, very famous musician that tours quite often, and his band is it's the longest tenured band that stayed together. One of the longest, maybe the longest in the world.
Whoa.
Okay, one of the longest. One of the longest, and I think that harmony comes from it's not. The antithesis is the typical story where it's like, I'm going to be famous and I'm the lead singer and it's about me. And the bassist that's always got these other opinions that fucking suck. We just got to get rid of them. And you see most bands don't stay together for, how long have y'all been together now? 20 years. Most bands do not stay together for 20 years. Makes me think of the Dawes song where it's like, may your favorite bands always stay together. And it's not typically the case. The Beatles, I think, were only together for 7 years, right? Something like that. 10 years. Yeah, so, you think about them for 60 years afterwards, but they're only together half as long as Samir and Young the Giant is the band that Samir's lead singer for. And so you could have that wiring, but it's not what you do, it's what you do it for. If you're doing it for yourself, people feel it. Everyone knows the coworker that is just out for themselves. Using other people as instruments, as Kant says, using themselves as an instrument to get what they want. And you see it, we all read it on those people. I always think of my friend Lenny we had sold our last business to Airbnb, and Lenny at Airbnb was a legend at Airbnb. So he's still a legend. I think his newsletter, Lenny's newsletter, in tech, I think it's the #1 revenue generating newsletter in the world.
No way.
And, yeah, of all Substacks. And he's just this mild-mannered, extremely nice, such a kind.
Miss Lenny.
I know, such a kind soul. And he was a legend at Airbnb because he just would help with any project. Legend. And then anybody can imagine within 10 seconds a coworker you've had that's super selfish. So it's not what you do, it's what you do it for that matters. And you get to these like principles, and then you can diagnose anything that's happening. Maybe a marriage on the brink, relationship on the brink, a business on the brink, a psychological state on the brink. And you can diagnose it like a surgeon. See the problem, or starting with a general practitioner. Then you are also the surgeon where you're like, oh, I made that mistake because I was so agitated and I lashed out and I said this or I did this. And then I tried to hide it because I was so ashamed and I didn't want them to see real me, and I didn't want them to know what I did, what I had done 3 months before. And out of self-preservation, I want to protect myself. And you do these things, and at the end of it, the base layer of what this philosophy says is every mistake you've ever made, every mistake you'll ever make is desire. Selfish desire. This person wanted to be someone in this organization and kind of like try to go in through the side door, and his wife was working for the organization. Tried to like use certain tension within the organization to get the boss fired. And he already knew who was going to replace the boss that was then going to hire him, and he hadn't had a job for 7 years, and his wife was the breadwinner of the family, and so he thought this was going to be like perfect. Ends up getting his wife fired, and ends up ending the marriage too.
I think that,
and just to round out that last point, and we were talking about yesterday, and he had so much desire. He's like kind of like, seems like he was angling this for a year. I doubt he'll ever be able to diagnose, it was my own selfish desire that caused a whole life to blow up. So that in that way, it's a hospital, and you get to be the general practitioner and the surgeon if you recognize like any agitation. According to this philosophy, again, take it or leave it. This philosophy is beautiful in that it says it's like a buffet. Take any of the concepts. If you like them, take them. If you don't, If that your what is stuff was a little too out there, leave it on the shelf, which is hilarious because, as I said, I think 1 or 2 sessions ago, I grew up Catholic, where you're told you can't be a buffet Catholic. You take one thing, you got to take it all. And but this philosophy is the opposite. Take one thing, great. That's all. You could go a couple of years on one of these great principles. But yeah, this philosophy, one of the principles is every agitation you've ever had or will ever have, the source of it is selfish desire.
So if there was one takeaway for everyone to wake up tomorrow with after this, would that be it?
I think the one that is like planting a grenade. One of the students at the ashram said this to Joseph, one of our other friends and my co-host of Yoga for Your Intellect. I have 2 podcasts on this philosophy that 12 people listen to. And
Good enough.
And it is a testament when your own wife listens to it. But Joseph was telling us this story where he said this other student, he goes, man, this guy Jeremy, he said this thing and it still rolls around in my head all the time. He said, man, this philosophy, and Swami, the founder of the ashram, is just one of many proponents of this philosophy. He plants grenades in you. And I think about this principle maybe the most when I think about just planting a grenade in you. That it's like you walk out and then it just 2 hours, 2 weeks, 2 years later, just goes off. And the one I think about most is nothing feels as good as doing what you ought to do. Because there's an aspect of that might help with something you're thinking through right now. There's an aspect of that helps with something that comes up, a fork in the road 4 hours from now, and there's an aspect of that will come up in every role of your life, every day of your life, for the rest of our lives. And it's a really helpful one. So yeah, that's what I'd probably leave people with. That's good. So now should we open up for Q&A for questions and anybody, and if we have a microphone, that's great, but if not, I'll repeat the questions. Yeah, first hand just went up there. As you know, I say often, it is with this philosophy or anything, you can take it or leave it. But I'll tell you what this philosophy says exactly on this subject. First off, love is defined in this philosophy as seeing no otherness in the world. So that is the most radical way to love somebody, is to identify with them. You know, I'm not giving my right hand a hug. Love is not a warm embrace. It's identification. I'm protecting this thing all the time, and I identify with it. And this philosophy is like, says, go to the radical extreme of see no otherness in the world. It could be a fly that you choose to not kill, and instead you open the window. That's how it's defined in this philosophy, seeing no otherness in the world. So that family member that's going through that tough time, see no otherness, identify with them. This, in the Bhagavad Gita, is 27-minute conversation between this warrior prince and this, what he thinks is his charioteer, but ends up being a symbolic embodiment of God. Very brief 700-verse poem, the most famous poem on the planet, but I never came across it until I was about 30. It's, like I said, it's 27-minute conversation between this warrior prince and the symbolic embodiment of God. And he's having this breakdown, mental breakdown. And what's really beautiful about Vedanta in the entire, you have the entire philosophy in the Gita, you have a 13-verse Upanishad. The Mandukya Upanishad is only 13 verses. The whole philosophy is in. The whole philosophy is in that thou art. The whole philosophy is in 3 words. It's not like I need to triangulate it. It's not something like the New Testament where modern scholars might say you need to triangulate with this and this and this and these other books. It is all self-contained. And in the Gita, so it's quite complete. In the Gita, it goes into detail of how to help another. And there's 5 ways that this philosophy in the Gita outlines how to help people. And Cerise, you may have heard me mention this before, but these concepts, the penny does not drop unless there's daily study, reflection, because we have to hear these things so often. And as is said in this philosophy, reflection is 100,000 times more powerful than listening. Meaning that listening is nothing compared to reflection. And experience is 100,000 times more powerful than reflection. Reading about the thrill of surfing, that could be pretty cool. Surfing, reflecting on surfing, going and watching someone surf, it's going to be 100,000 times more powerful than like reading an article in a magazine about surfing. You go and see it. You go reflect on it. You go watch it for a few hours, maybe a couple days. I know your son surfs, right, Cerise? So you see it and you're like, maybe you haven't surfed yet, but you're like, whoa. Much more impact than reading about it. Experiencing it, catch a first wave, there is no going back. There is no going back. It's Cheney and I both, it's like we want everybody to catch the first wave because there is no going back. It's so amazing. And the reason I say it is because what I'm about to say, the 5 ways that you can help people, is meaningless if there is no reflection on this. It's meaningless. You will forget it within 4 hours. It'll be like it never even happened within 2 days. And those 2 days are going to happen whether we like it or not. So the 5 ways to help people. 1 is you can give them money. Financial help, but that's the least helpful way of helping them. 2nd is with your emotions. You can kind of be with them emotionally. I'm thinking about them. Or I'm sorry, it's in presence. You can be with them in a presence. You just sit with them over coffee. But you haven't really emotionally gotten there with them. You're just going to get coffee with them because you're like, I got to phone it in. This friend's going through a tough time, or this sibling's going through a tough time. So you can give them money and be like, hey, here's some money for a treatment. Go for it. It's not that helpful. It's one of the ways you can help. It's not nearly as helpful as like, hey, I'm going to go be with them, which isn't as nearly as helpful as emotionally being there with them. Emotionally going to get that coffee to be there with them. That's obviously much better than just being like, hey, man, how much do you need for this treatment? But it's not nearly as helpful as offering them wisdom. Going to get that coffee, you say the wrong thing. Man. To really hammer this home, unwise actions destroy worlds. So you give someone wisdom, or you don't give them wisdom, but you're there emotionally. You say the wrong thing. Be fucking careful. This is a phrase that our teacher will say quite often, and I want to hammer it home with a specific example. Unwise actions destroy worlds, especially in a parent-child relationship. My sister, on December 17th, 2001, tried to take her own life. Went to my parents after she had gone into our garage in Dallas and turned on the car, and it didn't work. And she went to my parents the next day and said what she had done. And my parents started yelling at her. My dad started yelling, "Don't you know what that would do to your mom? I can't believe you'd even think of doing something like that." Yelling, not speaking calmly like I am. My mom's bawling, crying. What do you do? What do we do? They were there emotionally. They'd help with anything financially. They were there physically in presence. Yelled, got mad at her, angry, scared. There's no judgment. Unwise actions do destroy worlds, but bereft of a guide. This was 2001, so 25 years ago. We didn't have the awareness we have about these topics. And it was really scary for a parent to hear that. She was 19. She went to the local psychiatric ward for 3 days, and then on the fourth day, she convinced them. She's very smart. Convinced them that she was okay and she wanted to get home in time for Christmas. They let her out at about 10 a.m. on the 21st, and she got home probably about 11 a.m. I gave her a big hug. I couldn't believe what was happening. I was only 15 at the time, and that night she took her own life. Unwise actions destroy worlds, and this philosophy, and I'll tell you the most helpful way to help others in a moment, but according to this philosophy, again, take it or leave it. But every single one of us, you don't practice free throws 30 seconds before you're in Game 7 of the NBA Finals and you're on the free throw line with 11 seconds to go in the fourth quarter and you're down by 1. That's not a time to practice free throws. You practice free throws 20 years before and all that time leading up to the moment when it matters most. And every single one of us in this room, you will have a Tuesday at 4 p.m., a Saturday at 9 a.m., where you are on the free throw line. And if you miss those free throws, your life will never be the same. Socrates said philosophy is preparation for death. Preparation for your death, preparation for the inevitability of others, preparation for death of a career, death of an identity. It's preparation for all of that. And this philosophy would say that to expect the worst is pessimism. To be prepared for the worst is philosophy. To be prepared for the worst is philosophy. When I tell people, hey, I really think you'd enjoy reflecting on timeless truths for 10, 15 minutes each morning, ideally before the sun comes up, but know your level. Maybe it's at 8 a.m. before you get ready for work. I don't tell them because I think it's going to make their life. I feel like my life's effortless. I think it is in leading 3 companies and 3 little daughters, 2 podcasts that I already mentioned no one listens to, and a few. They're in this room, and out of all of these things, it feels effortless. And I don't tell people because you will get to that point where you're just in flow, and you're like the surfer that paddles 2 times and then is flying down the wave. I don't say it because of that. I say it because if you don't, good luck. When that call on Tuesday at 4 p.m. happens, or that conversation Saturday at 9 a.m., or that opportunity to maybe do the wrong thing Friday at 10 p.m. happens, good luck if you don't know how to shoot free throws, if you don't have that strong intellect. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, sending someone into a 50-foot wave that doesn't know how to surf. And those 50-foot waves in life for all of us are coming, whether we like it or not. And we might as well prepare. The number one way that we can help people, the most important work we do for others, is the work we do on ourselves. A lighthouse doesn't need to check in on every boat to be of help. It just is. And if a boat can't see that light, doesn't want to see that light, ignores it, puts a blindfold on, runs into the rocks, that is their journey. The best we can do is be a lighthouse to where maybe they see how we're living. And as I think it was Lincoln that said, the only way to influence another is to travel that way yourself. And you can try all the other means too. You can try talking to them, saying the right things, wording each point you might have in the right order, and maybe you can change them that way, or live that way yourself, and maybe it gives you a better shot. But great questions, Reese. And we got time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and it is past 10:30. If people need to go, feel free. We've got the room till 11. Yeah, Samir. Great question. And in knowing their level, I'd say the first thing is still walking this way ourselves. That's by far the most important work we do for others. The 3-year-old at breakfast, 5-year-old on the way to school, the 8-year-old that's having a tough time because you find out, which I think is the issue this morning, didn't do her homework and feeling that guilt. And it walk that way yourself. And it'll be the message that they see 1,000 times of how does mom and dad deal with some issue in life. That's the first thing. And then the other thing is you got to go, all of us. If you see the non-dual, you got to go from the non-dual to the dual. If you see the dual, you've got to travel from the dual to the non-dual. Can't skip steps. You can't just be like, I'm benching 500 pounds today. I've got the desire. I know when I set my mind to something, I can make it happen. I'm doing this today. And then you don't do it. And you're like, why didn't that work? Well, you actually really have to know your level. And most children, they're at that dualistic level. Pretty much all humans outside of maybe 1 or 2 a generation are at that dualistic level. And so know that they're at that level and use it. Swami will say oftentimes it's like a pole and a pole vault competition. Use the pole, use the duality to recognize, all right, I need to do work. I'm separate from this other person. Teachers, obviously, a dualistic relationship. They're teaching me and I'm learning from them. I'm learning from these people in my community. I'm surrounding myself with these kinds of friends because it's so healthy. That's inherently dualistic. But like the pole vaulter, use the pole to cross the bar. But you can't cross the bar with the pole. So you can't cross the bar without the pole. You need it. But you can't cross the bar with the pole. You also need to. It's the last thing you let go. It's the Vedantic example is you make a fire with a log. You use the dualistic log of discerning, well, who do I want to surround myself with? Or what do I want to reflect on in the morning? What do I want to tell myself right now? What is perhaps the thing I ought to do versus the thing I not ought to do, which is dualistic, like a log to make the fire. And then that's the last fire to go in is it's actually sacrifice itself. You sacrifice. But that's a great question around children, and very specifically, you leave these kinds of books around. You walk the way yourself, and you leave these kinds of books around. And they're about 15 is like the earliest that they would be able to grok some of these topics. So 15, you just leave them around, and maybe they don't look at it until they're 28.
Can I add that we do kind of, y'all might do this too, but we have young kids, so our oldest is 8. We'll say things like, for instance, this morning before coming here, I heard you say in front of the kids, like, oh, I really, really, really don't want a cold plunge, but like maybe it's what I ought to do to like, so that I feel better on the other side. And like talking it out loud and acting it, he'll like really like make it theatrical, and the kids are like really kind of watching, even though he's talking to me.
I ask them, what should I do? Marley,
or
what should I
do? What should I do? You know, and then do what you ought to do. Like, yeah. So like little sneaky ways like that. And then like karma, we've like introduced the topic of karma. Sometimes that backfires.
And yeah,
With the girls.
these are, I mean, karma's a heavy topic, so yeah. It's
but you're gonna get bad karma.
They yell that to each other. Yeah. It's heavy, but man, it is every major tradition has cause and effect. Every single one. So you can tell them about cause and effect all day long. I think even at 3, they can start to, maybe it'll take them to, they're 6 or 7 and they hear it 1,000 times. But like they say, when planting a tree, the best time is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Just know it's going to take a while before it sticks, but you'll be glad you did it. Of saying these things. And on the non-duality within Christianity, there is a significant thread of non-duality within Christianity. It's just called Christian mysticism, and it's a significant minority. But I will say every major tradition has a non-dualistic version and thread within it. You have Kabbalism and Judaism. You have Christian mysticism. You have Sufism and Islam. The Greek Orthodox Church, when the Great Schism in the 13th century and the 1200s when it split, Greek Orthodox was far more wired towards non-dualistic view. They have this Hesychism is maybe one of the largest sects of Christian mysticism with this concept of theosis, union with God. And they point to exactly what Christ said as much as any other sect. They just happen to point to a lot of what Christ said of like the prayer of the Last Supper, 26 verses, also called the High Priestly Prayer. And I wrote this book called Essence of Christ. You can find it on Amazon. It's a little pocket book. The top 100 most common cited quotes of Christ. And the original Greek, because, boy, did we get some things wrong that we know they're wrong. You just still print it out in the NIV. It's like, yeah, we know St. Jerome got that wrong in 400 AD when he translated from Greek to Latin, but it's just what we say now. Christ said, repent. He didn't say repent. He said metanoite, which means overcome your mind. Overcome your mind, for the kingdom is at hand. Overcome your mind. Metanoite is mistranslated, like I said, by St. Jerome, into repent. Repent. Repent is a external performative act. Overcome your mind, that is internal transformation. But so Essence of Christ kind of goes through all of this in a short, very simple read in a little pocket book. But my favorite part of the Gospels is the high priestly prayer, where Christ, 26 verses for prayer of the Last Supper. And out of 26 verses, 6 verses, not like a sentence across 2 verses, but 6 separate petitions where Christ is asking his disciples. They get to hear God pray. Pretty wild. They believe Christ is God, and they get to hear what God would pray for and what God's praying for. And this is just their interpretation of who Christ is. And you might not believe Christ is God, but what they're hearing and what every Christian that's going to church on Sundays can easily see in the gospel is 6 separate petitions that we recognize our oneness with each other and with him and the Father. Not once, buried in the last prayer before he goes off to crucifixion. Not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times, but 6 times. Growing up, I never heard a sermon from the pulpit on that subject ever. So the non-duality within Christianity is sitting there. And it's actually quite beautiful with AI. You can just ask, was Christ's message, is there a non-duality to Christ's message? And then spend a couple hours if interested. Great question. I want to get to someone on that. Yeah, just to balance out the room. Yes, Zamara, right? Yeah. Chain dog?
It's a great question. I know. It's like in every, it's just, I think it's been really, really helpful that we both have taken to studying it every morning independently.
And by the way, on that, I never tried to persuade her with words.
No, and that's something I love about the philosophy too, is there's no like evangelizing.
There's no purpose
really
in converting
refreshing.
anyone in a philosophy that says there's only you.
Yeah. So you're. Well, what would you say?
By the way, when I say that, I don't mean the you that we think we are. That would be the height of megalomania. Like, I don't mean, Juan, It's just you and the personality that is one. No, it's who you are beneath these attributes that we identify with and think.
Tying to what you guys are talking about in her question, I've known you guys for a fairly short time, but in this world of podcast, YouTube, gurus, you guys, what I've observed, you guys walk the walk. You have 3 daughters, and I can't imagine what that's about. So you can't really explain it to a young lady in words that much. You kind of do it by example.
Yeah, Gandhi was asked, "What's your message?" And in one sentence, and there's no Gandhi up here on stage. Knowing my wife and knowing myself. Well, I'll speak for myself because she's quite advanced. But he said when asked, "What's your message?" in one sentence, and he said, "My life is my message." If there are cameras on us 24 hours a day, I think it would only help anybody that had questions about this.
I thought of
topic.
one though that was because in a lot of relationships it might be just one partner pursuing truth, and you used to give people advice, and I'm blanking on it, or Swami did, but it was like something along the lines of it only takes one to be selfless. It only takes one selfless person for a partnership to work. Right?
Yeah, and any interaction, it could be a
any
coworker.
interaction.
All it takes is one person being selfless for there to be harmony. You go on a first date and you're like, I don't care where we go, wherever you want to go. You want to sit in this seat? Take that seat. Whatever you want to order. All it takes is one person to be selfless, and it's instant harmony. You want to go there afterwards? Great. Oh, you want to go to bed at this time? Oh, you want to do that? Okay, let's do it. Perfect harmony. It's when...
And then it like benefits you, you just see it benefit yourself too. So then it like kind of, it's selfless action, but then it like...
You feel so energized. The definition of right action in Vedanta is that which generates energy. Definition of wrong action is that which dissipates energy. So yeah, I'd say we're more energized at 39 than we've ever been in our lives. And to answer it directly, at least what comes up is best friend in the world, and every year gets better than the previous year. Every day is better than the previous day, and there's such harmony that I wish it for everyone. That's the honest truth. Is such harmony. I wish it for everyone, and I think that the delta of what might, if someone's single and wanting that super simple path. Eliminate selfish desires. Study, reflect daily. The universe will give you what you really need. And what you need might be a little bit different than what you want right now. But man, if you can take a break from just wanting and our culture that encourages selfish desire, just take a month being like, whatever selfish desire I have, just for this month, I'm going to do the opposite. There's a whole episode of Seinfeld of George Costanza saying, whatever I want to do, whatever I think I should do, whatever George would typically do, I do the opposite. And his life goes like swimmingly well. Like gets a job, gets promoted. He's like, and Jerry's like, how's this all happening? He's like, oh, it's super simple. I just, whatever I think I should do, I do the opposite. And when it comes to relationships, it's you choose to serve instead of seeing what you could get, and it works so freaking well.
I agree. And I think also, just practically speaking, we've done a weekly date night every single week since we got married. So that's like without, like, literally our babies would be like a few weeks old. That was him because I wasn't ready to go out and about. But he'd be like, we're going to get a sitter. Doesn't matter. Like, get a sitter. We don't have to do anything fancy. And so we've kind of just like really, really, that's been like a top priority for our relationship, has been like always having that Tuesday. It's like every Tuesday.
Yeah, Denise?
I just want to add that, like, what I observed from you guys, and what's also kind of seconded from the book, there's a little section of the book where it goes through like a selection of emotions, and then the first one is love, and it talks about, like, it talks against preferential love, and it goes down to the deep meaning of true love, and it had this little quote. It said, "Do not fall in love, rise to love." And That's a tricky thing, especially for me. But I think for a lot of us, like it's really hard to wrap your mind around non-preferential love, meaning like this person is my precious, despite everybody else. And this thing is saying the opposite. And when two people are practicing it, it radiates off of it, and that's what I see about you guys. It's like not falling in love and rising to love.
Yeah, and this on that point, anything short of seeing no otherness. If you love three people, if you love your children, you love your family, but not a stranger. This philosophy, very sober, in a very sobering way, will say that's not love. That is attachment. That is preferential attachment to certain people because of what they do for you. Certainly not to be like taken lightly. It's quite literal. You need your parents as you're growing up. You need caretakers. We need community. But it is preferential attachment. If you cannot love everybody that you see, then it is preferential attachment for what people do to you and do for you. And that is so hard for parents to hear. But when I think about saying the words, I love you to my daughters, I'm always asking myself, do I? And there isn't a corrupt, wayward person on the planet that can't utter those words, maybe even believes that they love their kids. I mean, some pretty nasty individuals throughout history probably thought they loved their children. But did they? The children does enough things against them, or it's a pain in the ass long enough, and they get to like 31, and then you know there's this big rift, and they separate, and the parents like, I can never say this, but God, they're such a pain in the ass. I just wish it. Maybe it's the other way around. Child and parents, like, God, they're such a pain in the ass. And but we walk around and we say that we love people, and it's the three daily practices of this philosophy are quite simple. Question everything. Don't take anything for granted. Study, reflect daily. Question everything. A lot of times it's like, do I love anybody? Do I even love myself? And it's that four-letter word our society loves to use. Says quite often. But do we love anybody? And this philosophy is kind of sobering, and it says, probably not. It's probably preferential attachment to what they do for you.
Yeah, when I think of fall in love makes me think like that's the mind, because that's like, oh, just fall in love. Like it's so mind. And like when you said rise in love, that feels so much more intellect to me. Like that's cool.
Yeah, I said this, and we can end it on this, and then we can stay for anybody that wants to come up and chat afterwards. And these are every first Friday here at the Lighthouse of every month at 9 a.m. And there is this thing I said last time that puts this topic of love in perspective for the Western audience with a very Western example. Where, again, it is a term that's used so often, but I had never heard a definition for it. I thought love was like giving someone a warm embrace. It's a hug. Being there for them when they need you. I thought that was love. And then you look at the example of the preacher whose sermon was love in every word and every act in the West, Christ. And that act of love was not necessarily a warm embrace. We're not talking about those 2,000. Those the hugs that I'm sure he gave 2,000 years later. It was 3 nails, arms extended, suffocating on his own blood. That's what love looks like. It's not checking in on a parent or a child. It's complete surrender. With that, we'll end it on such a fun note, and we look forward to seeing you all next first Friday for April. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Chain Dog.